Listener-supported St. Gabriel Catholic Radio AM 820 brings you Family Sanctuary, a show that inspires living the gospel message in word and deed within our families. And now, Family Sanctuary with host Peggy Hartshorn.
Welcome to the Family Sanctuary, focusing on life-giving relationships and the family. I'm your host, Peggy Hartshorn, chairman of Heartbeat International, that advances life-affirming pregnancy help around the world. And today I'm so excited to bring you our program. Our guests, Erin and Jake Neal, have just a phenomenal story. I don't want to give it away because it's an amazing example of how God has a plan for all of us and for all of our families. And how when we look back, we realize, oh my goodness, that's why this happened. That's why this happened. That's why I happened to be there. There are no coincidences. There are only God incidences, as some people would say. So Erin and Neal have a beautiful story. They now are been married how many years now?
Almost 16.
Almost 16 years. They have 4 boys, 10, 7, 4, and 2.
Yep.
They have ministry both at the cathedral and also at St. Michael's. But how did they get to that point? And and at this point in their relationship and their marriage, I want them to tell the story. And the title of our program is God's Surprising Call in Our Marriage. So welcome, Jake. Welcome, Erin. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Peggy.
Yes, thank you for having us.
You're very welcome. I've already told Jake he's got a great radio voice. Wait till you hear it more of it.
Thank you.
Erin, yours too is lovely, but Jake just sounds like he belongs on the radio. So tell us about God's surprising call in your marriage. Of course, I'm sure even your courtship, your marriage, you can look back and say, wow, God, because I know you told me how he even put you together in a surprising way. So putting you together in a surprising way, which led to your marriage, but then the real kind of amazing God things were even more obvious about 10 years ago in 2012. So unfold that story for us a little bit, however you would like to do it.
Yeah. So we can just share a brief kind of history of maybe how we met and where we got to the point 10 years ago. We met over in England. We were both doing a semester abroad at Oxford. That's
pretty exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not very many people do that, but
Yeah. I had gone on a pilgrimage in high school that inspired me to want to spend some time overseas.
Wow.
So I was planning to be over there. Jake ended up having to go over there.
Yeah. So my upper level professor in my last year of college was activated, and so I was forced to kind of find another program that would allow me to finish my upper level courses. And the only one I could find was studying abroad in Oxford.
Darn.
I know. So
great opportunity.
Yeah, it was a fantastic experience and ended quite well for me.
You didn't think you'd find this beautiful wife
Not
there.
at all. Went all the way across the pond to find someone from Ohio.
Were you from Ohio also?
North Carolina. Born
North
and raised,
Carolina.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you met over there.
Right.
Obviously, God had a role in that because I know the rest of the story, how he's using you as a couple. But so go ahead with the story, Erin.
Yeah. So I was Catholic. We met and we started dating, and I knew he was Protestant. He was Wesleyan. So that caused a little bit of angst in the beginning of our relationship, some sleepless nights, as I thought, can we really make this work? This Catholic and Protestant, can we really have this major difference in our relationship? And we had a lot of really good debates, actually. We had some good theological debates over there in the pubs of England. So it was a neat dating relationship. Obviously, we decided we could make it work. And Jake was very good to come to Mass with me also when we were there. When we got married, it was at St. Mary, Delaware, the church that I had grown up in here. So we had a Catholic wedding and all of that. And then, as you get settled into married life, we were in a different city. We were living in Columbus, so trying to find, a good parish. And as young people, we just, the faith kind of slipped to the back burner for a few years, I'd say.
busy with jobs.
Yes, right. Getting our lives settled,
Mm-hmm.
established and all that. And then my Aunt Judy, who's quiet and humble, but just a warrior for the faith, invited me to go to the Catholic Women's Conference. I think she had actually invited me the year before too, and I said no. She kept asking. So then in 2012, I went to the first women's conference for me. And I think the Holy Spirit just had a message for me that day. Leah Darrow was one of the speakers. She was a contestant on America's Next Top Model. And she just talked about, a lot of her dating experiences, kind of taking off and putting on her Catholic jacket, so to speak. And a lot of the things that she talked about, I could relate to. And then there was another speaker who kind of shared the horrors of her own abortion experiences. And it really just made me realize, the evils of following the cultural norms and the natural consequences
of taking the world's plan for our sexuality.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Taking out God's plan of the total commitment of man and woman to each other in marriage.
Right.
And the beauty of children
right.
in our sexual relationship as the fruit of that. What happens when that occurs? Yeah.
Right. Right. And so the message that I was convicted of that day was that using birth control was wrong. And I needed to look into a different path, which was natural family planning. So I went to confession that day, probably the first time in many years, and talked to the priest about it. We had been using birth control for the first 4 years of our marriage, and I didn't really think there was a lot, wrong with that. I wasn't well informed, moderately practicing at that point. But when I talked to the priest about it, he absolved me of my sins, of course, and encouraged me to go home and talk to my husband about it. Mm-hmm. So here I was coming home from the women's conference with this brand new revelation.
My wife had a day off and now I'll have a free day, right? Had no idea what was happening.
Not at all.
So I came home and I'm like, Jake, I realized that using birth control is wrong. We're going to start using natural family planning. And he was a little less than thrilled.
I was not pleased at all. I wouldn't say that I was like angry or angsty about it. I've never been that way, especially about up to that point, her being Catholic and me not. With my background in Christian ministry and biblical studies, even at the master's level.
And you were in the Wesleyan tradition.
In the Wesleyan tradition. It didn't bother me that she was Catholic. It didn't bother me that she didn't want to become Protestant. I had no plans to become Catholic, so we had accepted that. We were going to, I guess, find a way to worship together in some way, but that ended up just becoming me going to Mass with her. Mm-hmm. And I never really attended a Protestant church here. So, so I had been, you might say, drinking in the life of Catholicism. And when she came home with that, though, that was kind of like, that was one step too far.
You knew that was part of Catholic teaching.
And yes, I did. I knew it was something that we weren't abiding by. And I knew kind of the other teachings, especially the sexual teachings of the church that go along with that. And that's why when she first said, I'm like, I don't know about this. This is not right. That's where my kind of defense mechanism, I would say, kind of kicked in. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, intellectually, I want to start reading up on this. I went kind of in logical attack mode. I need to read the documents that are important to this teaching. I went out and got a physical copy of Humanae Vitae. I got a physical copy of the Theology of the Body. I read these things, and thinking I was going to find the problem. I was going to find a way to persuade her, like, this is ridiculous. This is not necessary.
Just a step too far.
Exactly. I should not have to change the way I'm living based upon this teaching, as Peter Kraft would say. And after a first time through these documents, I thought, okay, so I didn't find anything really wrong with it other than I don't really like it. But it seems coherent. Now, back up a little bit. And something that kind of carried over from our engaged encounter was that my first experience with a definition of love willing the good of the other. All right, that's something in my Protestant training I had never heard. All right, we kind of knew biblical definitions of agape, but we never went so far as to will the good of the other in defining love. And so I did commit. She said, this is what she wants to do. I am here to sacrifice myself and to will the good of the other, and this is what she has chosen to do. I'm going to go along with it. So not only did I say, okay, we will do this, I went to the trainings. I delved into the natural family planning classes, learned a lot, and so I was practicing natural family planning while trying to debunk natural family planning.
But what a beautiful thing that you knew this was important to your wife.
Yeah.
And you loved her. And so she thought this was important for her good.
Mm-hmm.
And you were willing to at least say yes to that,
absolutely.
Even though it wasn't a full heart and soul commitment to it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's a beautiful thing, really.
Yes.
And I'm sure your yes was just, God just poured grace on you at that point.
Yeah.
That's the way I think of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. So practicing this while also kind of continuing to read Theology of the Body, to read through Humani Vitae, I became overwhelmed by the beauty of it, the coherence of it, and the connection that John Paul II makes to Ephesians 5 and how he launches out of Ephesians 5 for so much of Theology of the Body, which was a passage that I absolutely had to have read at our wedding.
No, tell us about that passage.
So in it, it begins with that ominous line of wives, submit to your husbands, and then it goes on for a little bit about submission, but then it really then delves into husbands, love your wives, which was, of course, crazy to tell men of that time that you must love your wives. That was never a requirement of anyone, but that they must love their wives, and not only love them, but love them as Christ loved the church. And I kind of knew the basics of what St. Paul was saying there, but I had never really made the connection of that being to agape, to caritas, to love, that love is sacrifice.
Willing the good of the other.
Willing the good of the other, which means to the point of death, to offering yourself on the cross, which is, a gift of Christ's body to the church. Language that's very important for Theology of Body.
Sure.
The gift, the language of gift. And so it really kind of, for the first time, I respected sacramental theology for the Catholic Church. But as a Protestant with only 2 sacraments, really, this was the first time where I'm like, wow, the way this is laid out, marriage does seem like a sacrament. And if marriage is a sacrament, then the Eucharist absolutely has to be a sacrament. There's Christ's gift of his body to the church as well. And so if the union of man and woman in marriage is like Christ's offering on the cross, and the Eucharist is like Christ's offering on the cross, it made sense. It made sense not only of sexuality, of matrimony, it made sense of the whole kind of created realm. And as Bishop Campbell is often heard saying, the kind of quintessential teaching of Catholicism is the sacramental view of the world. Like it finally made sense as a Protestant that kind of had this natural dualism or even Gnostic understanding of the physical world. This made sense of
this
so
is the
much.
physical world. It's
Exactly.
way over here.
Yeah.
And this is the spiritual world. It's way over here.
Yeah.
Different place.
Yeah. But
They're not united.
Exactly. And the
Yeah.
union of these two in Christ is phenomenal. That
Wow.
what we do with our bodies and what we do every day in the physical world matters.
They're all connected.
Absolutely.
Sure. Let me reintroduce our guests. Jake, that was a beautiful summary of so many core teachings in our church. I know now why. Let me just give a hint of part of the rest of the story. You're now teaching RCIA,
Yes.
teaching other people entering the church what God has revealed through your lived experience. Our guests are Erin and Jake Neal, and the title of our program is God's Surprising Call in Our Marriage. So if you've been listening for a little while, you know that Erin was very surprised when in the 2012 Women's Conference, the Holy Spirit just zapped her with you need to take a different approach to the sexuality in your marriage.
Yes.
All right. Living the world's plan of contraception and children are optional to our sexual experience and love of each other. You realize, boom, there was something wrong with that.
Yep.
And your husband, beautiful husband, Jake here, who made a loving decision at that point. All right, if this is important to my wife, I need to love her in an agape type of love, willing the good of the other. Therefore, I will go along with this, but not wholeheartedly.
Right.
Then God really zapped you with a whole lot of grace, and you have become a tremendous advocate now, as you've seen the fullness of God's plan for our sexuality. So I'm introducing them again so they can tell the rest of their story now. Of once, Jake, you really began to see the truth, the full truth of the Catholic teaching and the teaching about the sacramentality, of our world. The physical and the spiritual are intimately connected. Gave you a whole different view, really, of Catholicism as compared to how you had been raised and trained in the Wesleyan tradition, the Protestant tradition.
Yes.
So what happened at that point?
Well, it had been building for a while. Between that and some other things that I was reading that were kind of connected to it, and having a lot of plenty of people in my life who were just excellent Catholic witnesses. It really it was never really a revelatory moment for me like it was for Erin. I mean, I didn't have that kind of conversion experience at a conference or a particular day. It just kind of had been building. And then we were back in England for like a 2-week trip just before we had kind of decided that we wanted to start our family. And so we made one last trip over there to see some of the old haunts. And we were in a pub having a couple of drinks, and I just had to let her know that I think I have to become Catholic. It was almost like a logical conclusion that I had come to. I have read all of these things. I love all of these things. All of these things are true. How then must I live?
Yeah.
And the only logical conclusion was to become Catholic. I mean, I can't stay where I am. There's nowhere else to go. As the disciples say, you have the words of eternal life, and
Right.
this is where I have to go. And needless to say, Erin was a little shocked. She made me go get her another beer so that she could handle what I've just revealed. Because and that's been the staple of my communication efforts in the marriage, is that I come to a particular thing and I tell her, and then she's like, wait, I had no indication. I had no clue. So
You're working through all this in your brain,
Yes.
through all this, and in your heart. And yeah, isn't it interesting how differently we process things and how differently we communicate? So Erin, you were pretty shocked at this point, apparently.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am much more an external processor.
You talk about it while you're processing it. Yeah.
And then it comes out. He fully forms an entire idea, an entire thesis in his mind, and then he shares
a whole conversion.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you find out about it.
Exactly. Yeah. I was shocked, pleasantly surprised. I'm sure I cried.
Yeah, maybe
I
the
was
beer
thrilled.
was she wanted to celebrate.
Oh, it
yes.
definitely was.
Right.
Yeah. It was like, I'm shocked. I want to celebrate. I'm thrilled. Wow. Tell me all about it.
I keep thinking of all the wonderful things that happen in British pubs too. Isn't that where
Absolutely.
C.S. Lewis and Tolkien and
Absolutely.
they met and
Yeah.
all the beauty that came out of that? Well, we love English pubs too. Well, then, so now, actually, I mean, you're very involved both at the cathedral and at St. Michael's. Tell us about how God has called you now. And I know mainly with you, Jake, you're now a teacher of the theology of the body, which is just amazing to me. At St. Francis de Sales High School,
Yes.
you're in charge of the junior theology program, right?
Yes.
For juniors, which, oh gosh, I'm thinking, wow, wouldn't I love for my grandchildren to have a teacher like you?
Thank you.
I'm so thankful that so many of our young people do have teachers like you in our Catholic high schools. And Erin, how has this affected? Well, I want you to tell some more of that story. What is it like to be a teacher of theology of the body there? But Erin, how would you say, kind of going up to the present time, how has this affected you and your calling, maybe as a mother, as a wife?
Yeah. It's really strengthened our marriage. We're unified on the faith front.
And for your 4 children, 4 boys. Wow.
Yes.
The beauty of that.
Oh, yes. So yeah, it's brought a whole new life to our marriage, really. We used to give a talk during pre-Cana conferences, sessions about sexual virtue, and we would talk about just his my reversion experience, his conversion experience, us being unified, and that just revitalizing our marriage, really.
Sure.
Making it brand new. And so we're not perfect, and we take left turns, but it's really set us on an amazing path for vitality, for love, for parenting,
and involvement in the church too.
Oh, absolutely.
With your commitment at St. Michael's and at the cathedral.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure you're a great light as a couple. I'm sure people notice it. Well, let me ask Jake a little bit about the teaching experience, teaching theology of the body. How does it come over to the young people? How do they respond to this? I think teaching young people today is a tremendous challenge, must be.
Absolutely.
With their shorter attention spans and, so tell me just a little about that.
Sure. I consider it, first and foremost, a deconstruction experience, really breaking down what a lot of the students have imbibed up to this point in their lives, which is what I had to do as well. I mean, that's why it took me so long to convert, you might say, and that was part of it. And I'm still in the midst of doing that. I mean, I imbibed the cultural view of sexuality and who the human person is, even amidst a very conservative Protestant tradition. And when you do that, when it becomes so habituated, it takes time to root out.
Sure.
And there'll be vestiges of it for quite some time. Whereas I'm getting the students who have imbibed that for 15, 16 years.
Sure.
And now that they are in high school and hormones are raging, and the intellect is not fully developed up to this point, it's a huge challenge to then present to them almost a completely different worldview of what sexuality is, of what the human person is, who the human person is, why we were made.
And what love is,
exactly,
as you say. Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's getting them to understand a lot of different definitions, getting them to understand, what love is, what the body is, that the things that our bodies do matter. And so it becomes a rather significant challenge, but it's also, I think, rewarding in that it changes the language of yesteryear. That's all about rules, all about do's and don'ts. And because they still ask those questions. They're like, well,
can you do this?
Exactly.
Can you do that?
Why does the church say you can't do this? And I'm like, well, let's think of it one step before that. And that is, why were you made this way? Why did God make you this way? He made you for this purpose. And if we have this purpose, if we have the end in mind, then we have a little bit more understanding of what will bring us fulfillment. And they're like, well, I just want to be happy. Well, what is happiness? Is happiness short term or is it long term? And then bringing in those things into conversation, I think is pivotal. I get them for 1 year as juniors. So I hope that makes a difference. And of course, in our diocese, with the implementation of theology of the body throughout the entirety of the curriculum and all of the ages, we're going to see, I think, greater fruits in the coming years as they've had this more consistently given to them.
Sure. Junior year won't be the first time they hear about it.
Exactly.
They'll be planting the seeds even in grade school.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing. I'm just thrilled that our young people in this diocese, in the Catholic schools, now will be having a curriculum of theology of the body from from kindergarten on,
Right.
which is just beautiful. So I suppose you're also learning with your 4 boys here, age 10, 7, 4, and 2. The 10-year-olds and 7-year-olds, you could probably be learning a little bit on the job how this is introduced to the littlest of children. Yeah. Won't that be neat to see? Neat is not the right word. It will be beautiful to see how this is going to really bloom in our children with having this from the earliest ages on. I'm just thrilled because I'm such a great fan of theology of the body. With Heartbeat International and our pregnancy centers, ever since the 90s, we've actually tried to incorporate it into our teachings on what we call God's plan for our sexuality. So we've been trying to plant those seeds as well and see how God will bring them to bloom. Well, we've just got maybe a minute left. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with your presentation today of your beautiful stories?
I love the irony of Jake's conversion, that, the very thing that he set out to try to poke a hole in, to disprove, was the very, the natural family planning teaching was the very teaching that brought him into the church. So it blows my mind to think about that.
Yes. And not only brought him into the church, but now makes him a real authority on the theology body. And by bringing it so beautifully into our Catholic schools, the two of you really are just an amazing vehicle that the Lord has used, your coupleness, your love for each other, to really bring a new vision for so many other people in our diocese. So thank you for saying yes. Thank you for being on the program and telling your beautiful story.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you
Jake and Erin. So you have been listening to the Family Sanctuary on St. Gabriel Radio, and the title of our program, God's Surprising Call in Our Marriage. If you'd like to get this program again, it is available in our archives with Erin and Jake Neal. I'm your host, Peggy Hartshorn, and to find the program again and other programs, go to stgabrielradio.com, choose podcasts, and then the Family Sanctuary. Family Sanctuary is broadcast at 4 o'clock on Saturdays and 2 o'clock on Sundays right here on St. Gabriel Catholic Radio. So please join us again to strengthen our families and make them sanctuaries of life as God intends.
Family Sanctuary is a production of listener-supported St. Gabriel Catholic Radio, AM 820. Archives of Family Sanctuary with Peggy Hartshorn are available at stgabrielradio.com.